Brahma Akshara Samudbhavam
Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma
Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma
Nityam Yajne Pratishtitam.
Nityam Yajne Pratishtitam. Anybody else? Okay. Also, hear the sound.
Karma Brahmodbhavam Vidhi.
Karma
Brahmodbhavam
Vidhi.
Brahmakshara Samudbhavam.
Brahma
Akshara
Samudbhavam.
Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma.
Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma
Nityam Yajne Pradishthidam.
Nityam
Nityam
Yajne
Yajne
Pratishtitam.
Pratishtitam.
Karma, work. Brahma, from the Vedas. Udbhavam, produced. Vidhi, you should know. Brahma, the Vedas. Akshara, from the Supreme Brahman, personality of Godhead. Samudbhavam, directly manifested. Tasmat, therefore. Sarvagatam, all pervading. All pervading. Brahma, transcendence. Nityam, eternally. Yagye, in sacrifice. Pratisthitam, situated. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Again, regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Purport. Yagyartha karma, or the necessity of work for the satisfaction of Krishna only, is more expressly stated in these words. If we have to work for the satisfaction of the Yagya Purusha, Vishnu, then we must find out the direction of work in Brahma or the transcendental Vedas. The Vedas are therefore codes of working directions. Anything performed without the direction of the Vedas is called vikarma, or unauthorized or sinful work. Therefore, one should always take the direction from the Vedas to be saved from the reaction of work. As one has to work in ordinary life by the direction of the state, one similarly has to work on the direction of the supreme state of the Lord. Such directions in the Vedas are directly manifested from the breathing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said, Yashya Mahato Bhutasya Niswasitam Etad Yadrig Vedo Yajurveda Samaveda Atharva Angi Rashaha. The four Vedas, namely the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, are all emanations from the breathing of the great personality of Godhead. This is from Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad 4.5.11. The Lord, being omnipotent, can speak by breathing air. For as it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, the Lord has omnipotence to perform through each of his senses the actions of all other senses. In other words, the Lord can speak through his breathing, and he can impregnate by his eyes. In fact, it is said that he glanced over material nature and thus fathered all living entities. After creating or impregnating the conditioned souls into the womb of material nature, he gave his directions in the Vedic wisdom as to how such conditioned souls can return home back to Godhead. We should always remember that the conditioned souls in material nature are all eager for material enjoyment. But the Vedic directions are so made that one can satisfy one's perverted desires, then return to Godhead, having finished his so-called enjoyment. It is a chance for the conditioned souls to attain liberation. Therefore, the conditioned souls must try to follow the process of yajna by becoming Krishna conscious. Even those who have not followed the Vedic injunctions may adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness, and that will take the place of performance of Vedic yajnas or karmas. Om Agnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmritan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sijita Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saghana Raghunathavitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paryana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saghana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarvasya Kripa Sindhu Bhavacha Patitanam Pavanebhayo Vaishnavebhayo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Again. Karma Brahmodbhavam Vidhi Brahmakshara Samudbhavam Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma Nityam Yagye Pratisitam. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Right. So we are in this section of Bhagavad Gita of the Karma Yoga, section 3, from 10th to 16th verse, as we were discussing last Friday, from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga, right? Where we see the beginning of this chapter where Arjuna is starting with some confusion of the contradictory, apparent contradictory words from the Supreme Lord, where on one side he's thinking that, oh, Lord, you are telling me to renounce renounce work, and on the other side you are telling me that to fight the war. How is that possible? Either I have to renounce or not renounce. So the Lord is kind of mentioning, now we see in the beginning of the chapter, that till one sufficiently gets purified, one cannot live without performing activities even for a moment, right? So one needs to become purified. And how does one become purified? So then he's mentioning this section of Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga section of performing one's prescribed duties or performing yajna. Here, especially, it's mentioned about performing yajna. Now, yajna can also have two meanings. One is yajna meaning sacrifice or rituals, as what we know of. But yajna can also mean as performing one's prescribed duties. Right. Yeah. It can also mean as one's performing prescribed duties is also yajna. Yajnarthat karma. Right. In the previous words, it's mentioned yajnarthat karma. Right. And this words, Sri Prabhupada refers that Prabhupada is like, okay, if you perform yajna, sacrifice, or you perform your prescribed duties based on the Vedas, based on the guidance given from the Vedas, then since Vedas are directly emanated from the Supreme Lord, right? Vedesya sarvai am eva vedyo, directly emanated from the Supreme Lord. You are ultimately you ultimately satisfy the Supreme Lord. And ultimately you become purified and attain transcendence. Right. If you perform your activities, if you perform yajna based on Vedas. Right. So it's a nice words where Lord is mentioning, okay, perform means follow Vedas. And he's also mentioning that if you do not follow Vedas, you are doing vikarma, unwanted activities, sinful activities. Because then you are following, you are performing work based on your own wings, and that is vikarma. So let's try to understand this different subject matters here. Okay, in the previous words, right, we saw the food grains, right, how all embodied living entities subsist on food grains, right. The meat eaters, they may say, oh, well, we don't subsist on food grains. But the meat which they're eating, that also, to create a 1 pound of meat, there are thousands of food grains utilized. Right. Statistics are given. If you read our higher taste book or other books, in front, statistics are given. So all embodied beings subsist on food grains, right? And food grains are produced by rains. Bhagavad, what is that? That verse from the 3rd chapter about let me pull up the verse. Not Bhavati Bhutani. Where is that verse? Yeah. So basically, meaning that anna, the grains, comes from Parjanya, the rains. It is produced by the rains. And how is the rain coming? It depends on performance of yajna, sacrifice. Right? It depends on the performance of yajna, sacrifice. So, and it's born of prescribed duties. Right. The rains, now, how is it dependent on the performance of yajna? Amritana Prabhu had asked the other day. It depends on the performance of yajna because performance of yajna satisfies the Supreme Lord. And in turn, the demigods are satisfied. And in turn, so you get rain, but not necessarily that that's the only process. The rain god will have shower rain even at places where rain is not needed, like the ocean, right? But if you don't have rain, to satisfy the rain god, to satisfy the Supreme Lord by performance of yajna. Elsewhere in Smriti, I was reading these very nice words, which is there. Agnau prastahutihi samyak adityam upatistate aditya jayate vrishti vrishte annam tata prajaha. The offering the fire, yajna, the offering the fire goes to the sun. Agni Dev, right? Sun. From the sun arises rain. How does from the sun arises rain? There is a reservoir of water from the sun. It vaporizes, creates water vapor. It goes up, creates cloud, and from that cloud you get rain. And that rain is needed for cultivation of grains, food, and food is needed to subsist the bodies of the living entities. So that's how, that's another way we can understand how from the performance of yajna, sacrifice, the rains comes. So the rains depend on the performance of yajna, sacrifice, and is born of prescribed duties. That is born of prescribed duties, which is prescribed within Vedas. The prescribed duties is prescribed in the Vedas. Each and every duty which we can perform, we have to perform, is prescribed in the Vedas. And Vedas comes from the Supreme Lord. Right? So whole cycle. So the purpose of human life is to please the Supreme Lord. Savai pumsa parodhama yato bhakti adhok sadre. Yatma suprasati. Right? Yeah. And the base process is to please the Supreme Lord by unalloyed and undeviated devotional service. Right? Savai pumsa parodhama yato bhakti adhok sadre. Yatma apratiyata. I'm forgetting my verses. What is that?
अहेतुके अप्रतिगत.
Ahituki apratiyata yayatma suprasideti. Ahituki apratiyata yayatma suprasideti. Right. Savai pumsha parodharma yato bhakti adhok sajay. Ahituki apratiyata yayatma suprasideti. And that is the best process to please the Supreme Lord by unalloyed, ahituki, and undeviated, apratiyata, undeviated devotional service, uninterrupted devotional services. And now, Srila Prabhupada this particular section is mentioning about the base yagya for this age of Kali is Sankirtan yagya, right? Now, which comes from the chanting of the holy name. So in this particular purport, we see, first of all, yagyarthat karma, right? Which means the necessities for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, right? But since we cannot directly satisfy the Supreme Lord in our impure stage by performance of Bhakti Yoga, this yoga ladder is mentioned. Okay, you perform your prescribed duties. You are not able to Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, perform your prescribed duties as enjoined in the Vedas. Purify your senses, right? And ultimately come to this niskam karma stage, right? If we work for the satisfaction of the Yagya Purusha Vishnu, then we must find out the direction of work in Brahman or the Transcendental Vedas, right? That's another point which is made in these particular words. We must find out the direction of work in Brahman, and Brahman here at various places it is translated as Vedas or the Transcendental Vedas, right? Because it is coming from the Supreme Lord himself. So why the Vedas are needed? They give us the codes. That's why Vedanta Sutra, ultimate conclusion of the Vedas is called Vedanta. And Sutra are the codes, right? So Vedanta Sutra, they're the codes which gives us the ultimate conclusion. So similarly in the Vedas, there are guidance given and there are various codes given of performance of work, right? And Srila Prabhupada gives this wonderful analogy, just as we are working in ordinary life by the direction of the state. So what about the supreme state, right? It's the Lord who possesses everything. He is the source of the material world and the spiritual world. And in his supreme state, he has his various departments, right? Of which he is the supreme proprietor, the supreme beneficiary, the supreme enjoyer. Right? So just as we are working in ordinary life by the direction of the state, similarly, we need to work in the direction of the supreme state, the supreme personality of Godhead. And if we don't do that, we are just performing sinful work, vikarma, right? We are just performing sinful work. So that's why performance of prescribed duties based on the Vedas is necessary to satisfy the Supreme Lord. But see how even performance of work is connected to the Supreme Lord when it is in the direction of the Vedas, right? Because then we are satisfying the Supreme Lord directly, right? Srila Prabhupada mentions and he quotes this Brahman Aranika Upanishad, where the breathing, the speaking of the Supreme Lord, he speaks the Vedas, the Rig Veda, they were ultimately divided into four. The Rig Veda, the Yajurveda, the Samaveda, the Atharva Veda, right? But that comes from the breathing of the Supreme Lord, right? So the Vedas are the emanations from the breathing of the Lord. Similarly, the Lord impregnates the material energy just by his glance. Angani yasha sakalendra vritti manti. Each and every senses of the Supreme Lord is sufficient to perform any of the activities. Right? Not that if the Lord has to eat, no, he has to use his hand and then eat. No, he can just glance on the food and he can eat. Right. So he can eat by seeing or hearing the words of uh, devotion. Right. So that's the process by which we can satisfy the Supreme Lord in the initial stages, in the Karma Kanda stage. And by performing our activities at that particular stage, ultimately we will come to the Niskam Karma stage, where you will perform activities without desiring the results. In the Karma Kanda stage, you desire results. Right? But since you perform activities, though you are desiring results, since you are performing activities based on the Vedas, you are connected to the Supreme Lord. You are satisfying the Supreme Lord. And that activity is also purifying you to bring you to the higher rung of the yoga ladder to ultimately say that, oh, I'm performing these activities and ultimately everything is coming from the Supreme Lord. Why not? Why should I worry about the results? No, the results also he is the supreme beneficiary. Right. So then in that particular consciousness is just performing activities without worrying about the results. Without worrying about the results. Are there any questions? Yeah. Stop this. I can take some questions here now.
Prabhu.
Hari.
Prabhu, my question is related to the interchangeable senses of Krishna.
Yes.
He is the supreme, so with his eyes he can eat, he can taste by hearing the words of the devotee and so on and so forth. So a couple of days back I was listening to Bhakti Rasamrita Swami's lecture. And he mentioned that there are three types of senses, the gross senses, then the mind also has the senses, and then the soul also has the senses. The soul senses are dormant, and currently it's very active with the gross and at the mind level. So if I understand what Maharaj was saying, and then this fact that Krishna's senses are interchangeable. Now when people who are in the spiritual kingdom, they don't have a material body like us. They have a spiritual body. Correct? So their senses are also all spiritual, like the soul. So is it possible for them also to have these interchangeable senses? And I could understand if it is yes, then it would be at a minute portion. Like Krishna is like Annukut. He could eat and eat and eat and eat because he's infinite. There's no end to his eating. Whereas we being small can only do that much. So is it that's how it is, that even the Jiva and Goloka can see and taste the food, or it's only reserved for Krishna?
Food is all the example.
Horrible. See, you got the answer. The Jiva in the Golaka. Now, the Jiva in Golaka is also completely spiritual. Right. So we need food to maintain our body. Right. To maintain our body, we need food. To maintain our car, we need the diesel, whatnot. Right. But similarly, but what to speak of the spiritual soul itself? Does the spiritual soul needs food?
No.
No. Similarly, Jiva in the spiritual world does not necessarily need food to sustain. Just like we hear Uddhav Maharaj, when he was sent to Vrindavan, with a message by Lord Krishna to be passed on. When he went to see Nanda Maharaj and Mother Jasoda, Mother Jasoda was churning, but there was no substance in the churning. There was no yogurt, there was no nothing, but just the mood, the sentiment that she was churning. The kitchen had all spider webs, cobwebs throughout. It was not used after the Lord left. So they were just sustaining themselves by remembering the Supreme Lord. Now, medical science will tell us that, say, human being 8 days, if he stays without food, water, he will not live. Right. But even the Rajvasis defy that medical science. Just by thinking about the Supreme Lord, fully absorbed in the activities of the Supreme Lord. Right. They are able to sustain themselves. So what to speak of those who are in the spiritual realm themselves, where at each and every moment they are associating with the Supreme Lord. They are at Abbas, I want to cook for the Lord. Right? Even in the spiritual realm, they are at Abbas that I want to cook for the Lord. And there are Kalpavriksha trees where everything is provided. They can make preparations for the Supreme Lord. Yeah. Is that all right? It's difficult for us to comprehend.
Yeah, that's understandable, but maybe not eating, but can a jiva in the spiritual world hear by his eyes? By looking at something, he can hear the sound, like interchangeable senses. So food is understandable, he's eternal. There's no need for food.
Yeah.
Material body needs food.
Yeah, the material body needs food. Now, the jiva is Satchidananda, full of knowledge, full of eternity, full of bliss. Right, in its pure state, it is full of bliss. Ananda Bhayabhyasa. So it's it does not externally need to strive for bliss because it is full of bliss. And it's just performing activities and activities. And that being said, now we cannot be thinking about they would still have their spiritual form. Right. And so then the spiritual form, based on their eternal rupa, they'll be serving the Supreme Lord. If human form, then human form. Right. So, yeah. Our topics now, thinking about hearing. What can they hear? Do they have interchangeable senses? Just like, even in the material realm, we see some examples are there where a tortoise, when it impregnates, right? It just thinks, mind. So the mind it impregnates. So even that impregnation, that power of the impregnation is there even through the mind, even in a tortoise. Right. So yeah. So that's what I would think the elements. There's a Lord senses is completely spiritual. minute giver who is completely spiritual also, will also have that same potency, though in a minute level.
Yeah.
In a minute level. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, my I don't know if this is related to today's verse or no, but my kids asked me a question. They like to play like sports a lot, like they're in school teams and stuff. And they were asking me how we can keep Krishna in the center. Like, how can we, like, while we are playing, how can that be offered to Krishna? Like, how can we keep Krishna in the center of that activity of playing?
Yeah. So they're in the same boat. I also like sport. I also like sports a lot.
Okay, since everything has to be done for Krishna, so that's what, and I just told them that you can meditate on Krishna and, like not worried about the fruits, like you play, but, like my answer to myself also was not satisfactory. But yes, I said, do not worry about the fruits, like when you're playing for school team and all, do not worry, do not let that depress you and all, because leave the fruits, just put in the effort. So,
yeah.
If you can explain it better.
Well, in the spiritual realm, there's only the sakhas of the Lord are playing with the Lord. So, no, I would know that it will become dry, but no, it's but when we are completely absorbed, satatam kirtan tamam, right? Then we'll always think about activities for the Lord, right? So that sports, okay, no, we would say that that sports is there on the material level. It's not on the spiritual level. So how can I do it thinking about the Lord? Yes, in one sense, you won't be able to do that. Thinking that, okay, I'm just maintaining my physical body, but that verses where Prabhupada will mention that it's frivolous sports. Frivolous sports is one kind of gambling. So when he says, check the vow, no gambling, that takes care of no frivolous sports also.
Okay.
It was very good that you asked me this question, because I'm kind of last few months I'm kind of finding myself challenged after my Guru Maharaj gave me left and right on the same principle.
I feel that, yeah, I'm just like interrupting you, because if these kids don't engage in sports or something like sports is still positive, then they will go in the other direction. Maybe, drugs, maybe depression, maybe they need some outlet, I think,
Yeah. So
and so far they have been good that way, because this keeps them away, like my daughter, like, she was actually in quarantine for 2 weeks because one of her teammates had, so we got her tested, I got tested. But today she went against our wishes, because she said, like, if I stay at home, I will go into depression because of like staying at home, because there's no school, there's nothing, so please don't take this away from me.
Yeah, so that's why the sports at their level, we don't have to give that message that, oh, you cannot do that. No, okay, now
Yeah.
continue. Especially, at their level, they need to spend their energy. So it's the best form of spending the energy is, you walk, you run, you do all those activities. Or, or that higher rules of no gambling or no frivolous sports comes after initiation, or even that numbers. Many of us won't be following that. But okay, it comes at that particular stage, at their level, let them play.
I
will
would just
encourage them.
we were just trying to stop her because of the COVID circumstances, but
Yeah.
then
No, but they can go outside, run, like nephew every day. I'm struggling with 4,000-5,000 steps every day. He has 30,000, 40,000 steps every day.
So
Right.
just basically they should just think of Krishna and like just offer whatever they're doing to Krishna, like how to explain it to them.
How do they, if it has to be to some extent detailed, how do we do that? It's by okay, you hear something while walking. Now walking is advised, recommended. Like Mr. Prabhupada will go every day for morning walk. Right. So there's no harm in walking or running. Right.
So anything that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Prabhuji.
I was going to say anything that, in that requires, that contributes towards your well-being, right? Spiritually or physically, in a healthier way. And of course, like you said, you walking, you chanting, or you hearing the kirtanam or some activity. So in a way, this all gets to your well-being of your body. And if you're putting your body to the service, then again, it gets to that point where directly, indirectly, you take care of your body, you put your body to the service, then, somehow that's connected, isn't it?
Yeah. The body is the temple of the Lord. So if we take care of the body with that consciousness that, hey, so that I can serve you better, Supreme Lord, then yes, with that consciousness. So that's why it's walking, running, all those activities. And how do we plug it in? Yes, here's whatever nice kirtan which we like while running or walking.
But Prabhu, you can't hear kirtan while playing soccer or some other sport like baseball or soccer or something.
Yeah.
So
I think basically being detached, from that's what.
So those are those again comes to the ball games, which quote unquote were not kind of recommended or something.
Yeah, but just like, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Mataji, go ahead.
No, I was saying, but then again, you said that that's not really till you are initiated, like our stage.
So at that stage, if they are playing, okay, fine, wonderful. We encourage them. At least they're doing something. Yeah, go ahead.
I had the same question Rohil asked me when he was probably in middle school or something. And these kids used to play a lot of these video games, sitting in front of the TV and doing something, Game Boy or something. So I said, why don't you go out and play soccer or some physical activity? Here you'll become a couch potato. So I said, you should dovetail all the principle. So he says, how can I, playing video games, how can I dovetail that into Krishna consciousness? So then I said, look at it this way. Suppose you build up your skills of video games and video games, there are silly amount of prize money running into millions of dollars, and children who are teenagers and 20 somethings are earning that much. So I said, one way you can do is if you become really an expert at it and you win some prize money, Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur's instruction that 50% you have to give it for spreading Krishna consciousness, 50% for yourself. Then similarly, when the Sachi started playing soccer, the idea to give her is that in a sport you'll either win or lose the game. And that's what life is. And Gita teaches us to be undisturbed. So look at it as an experience where it is a training ground for you to remain undisturbed, whether you win or lose. So that teaching of Gita, I said you can keep that in mind. If you win, don't get too carried away. Great. Think that you have these skills which Krishna gave you that made you win. And if you lose, that's okay. Think how you could do better, what you can learn from that. So don't get too carried away. And so, yes, your point is right, Prabhupada said. And I also understand what you said. It is for the adults not to get too caught up in wasting time. You'd rather, instead of going and playing 1.5 hours of soccer, you could probably be doing japa or reading. That would be more worthwhile. But with children, I think some kind of a relaxation in the, I don't know, you would know better what Prabhupada wanted. But I think
there is the similar question asked to Srila Prabhupada, the sports category of the sports. Srila Prabhupada rejected all those, this mass playing of, like, but Srila Prabhupada recommended you can play kabaddi. Kabaddi is very healthy, that to make you very physically healthy. And some few other sports. I think soccer is also, I think that's recommended. That not the soccer.
As far as Prabhupada's recommendation, it was wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling. That's a kabaddi, right? Kabaddi, wrestling.
Yeah.
Those things. And that's it. Not more than that. Just to make you fit so that you can engage in the service of the Lord.
And swimming. Wrestling and swimming.
Yeah, swimming, yes, correct. Swimming, walking.
Yeah.
Those things. Not more than that.
It's difficult. I can understand their level. At my level, it's becoming difficult to completely comprehend that. Especially cricket level like me, it's difficult to comprehend that. Okay, no, that I don't do this, I don't do that, I don't do this, I don't do that.
And kids keep coming to you with challenging questions.
Yeah.
Mainly the point is, probably, I mean, we waste a lot of time, right? For the cricket, the entire day is gone. Soccer, lots of time spent for it. I think the overall purpose is that actually engage. Yes, minimum level you engage into this activity so that it's fit, keep your body and soul together and very fit. Rest of the time, engage with your body, mind, and soul at the Krishna conscious level. But whatever is actually dovetail, whatever supports for that, and that's kind of recommended.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the input.
Thank you for clarifying me, Mataji. I've been remembering, I'm trying to take this bitter pill every day of my life right now. And
Thank
so
you,
Madhupati Prabhu's Sunday Super Bowl won't affect you.
Well, Krishna Ball is there.
The bowl, Hari bowl is there.
Good one.
Very good, very good.
That is a good one.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful class tomorrow. Bhakti Ashraya Vaishnav Maharaj.
That is Sunday? Tomorrow?
Oh, sorry, Sunday.
Yeah, tomorrow morning, rather
not. No,
yeah, but on Sunday evening, 8 to 9, make sure you all are there and no super bowling or no Krishna bowling or just hear the class. Hari.
Yeah.
Honey, okay, it's 8 o'clock.
Madhupati Prabhu.
Yes.
Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Correct.
Okay. During the class, you mentioned about the prescribed duties. Just to get clarified, as a grahastha, whatever the activity that you do to take care of your family, your children's education, does that you consider as a prescribed duty, or you have some
Yeah.
more?
No, I mean, so those are also prescribed duties. No, and there's a whole list of those prescribed duties. No, an ideal householder, no, is, the grahastha, that's the only ashram which supports all the other three ashrams. Right? Brahmachari, Vanaprastha and Sannyas are supported by a grahastha. So they need to support nomads, they need to even serve the Vaishnavas. Yeah. But the prescribed duties which are enjoined in the Vedas are then go to like one and ashram kind of activities, which is mentioned in the later chapters of Bhagavad Gita also. Krishe Goraksha Vanijyam, like you have the activities of a Vaishya, activities of a Kshatriya, activities of a Brahmana, activities of a Shudra, right? Similarly, activities of a Brahmachari, Grahastha, it's all quite elaborately laid out. But what you mentioned is also, yeah, those are also activities as part of the grahastha, but it's more than that has to also be there. So that it becomes grahastha. It's not centered around just you and your immediate family and the senses. Yeah, is it okay? But it's quite detailed. I can share some of the duties.
Yeah, okay, Prabhu. Yeah, in the Nityam Bhagavad group, you could get more details if you could.
Come in 10 minutes. It's done.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I have a question for the temple. Does the temple open these days? If so,
Yes,
what are the
the temple
timings?
temple is open in restricted hours. In the morning, it is open till 9-10 o'clock, and then in the evening from 5 to 7:30, it is open on weekdays, and weekends it is open almost entire day, where you can go and take darshan in a wearing mask and following safe distancing and all. But otherwise, it is open. Yes.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.